Hey, I'm Mel.
Hey, I'm Mol.
Welcome to the Podyssey.
With the GlioBabes.
Two girls.
Two brain tumours.
What could possibly go wrong?
Well, we've now 4 again. So, hopefully nothing, but potentially something. You're in for a ride.
So, hello and welcome back to the Podyssey. Today we have two very special guests on, Dan and Dave, who are the co-founders of Headstrong Against Cancer. Thank you so much for being here today, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, pleasure's all ours, ladies.
Please, can you introduce yourselves very briefly and tell us about why you're here on the podcast today.
I'm Dan, aka Lammy, to a lot of my friends and mother and father-in-law, ironically. Still not call me Dan yet. And yeah, I think one of the main reasons we set up Headstrong Against Cancer, because I have a glioblastoma and I have done since for the last 9 years. And I've known Dave since childhood. So join forces to create something a little bit different.
Yeah, and I suppose I'm Lammy's sidekick. So we've been friends for 30 years. So I'm here and happily supporting him with Headstrong.
Thank you so much for being here. We're really, really excited. You've already started on it, Dave, but before Headstrong Against Cancer, before glioblastoma, can you tell us a bit more about who Dan was to you?
Yes, yeah, no problem at all. So we actually met when we were 16 years old. So I think it was 1995. We both grew up in the southwest of the country. I was based in South Wales. Lammy was just over the border into the southwest of England. So I actually moved schools at age 16 to do my A-levels at sixth form college in England. So I went over the border. I remember the day. It was my first day at the new school, so obviously quite nervous. I knew a few people through football, but I was sat in the common room on day one. And this group bowled into the common room led by this very loud and confident individual. I think he was rapping at the time, or he was definitely singing. Anyway, threw his bag into the corner, basically owned the common room. And I thought, oh no, I'm not sure I'm going to like this guy. And I think we started play. I think we played football for the school in week 2 or week 3. And we just hit it off. We just hit it off then. And 30 years on, we've been best friends. So we've been through a lot. So Lammy to me is, he's been a constant in my life for the last 30 years.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Dave, and giving us a bit more of an insight into it. And Dan, I hate to do this, but I'm going to go straight in with the hard questions, if that's okay. So you touched on before about how you've been diagnosed with glioblastoma.
Hard, Mel. Or harder than cancer, Mel. Yeah, go on.
We're going to need a humour warning on this,
barrels,
can't we? What do you remember most about the day that you were told that it was glioblastoma? Can you elaborate on that a bit more for us?
Yeah, I can remember it vividly. It was, is it all right to give you a bit of a backstory to the day? Because it makes it a little bit easier to understand rather than just going straight in and being told from a scan that.
Yeah, of course.
So I started with seizures. I had a frontal lobe tumour. So they give you phantom taste and smell seizures. Forgot what they were called now. But you're awake, you just but it was constant. I had one on my mother-in-law's 70th birthday. We were going to the York Railway Museum tea house for afternoon tea for her 70th birthday, and I had one in the car on the way there. The best way to describe it was I felt like I was having a stroke. I mean, I was doing all the kind of lift my arm as my face dropped, that kind of stuff, okay? And it went. But then a few weeks later, I had another one. This time I was at work. And it went away again. But then it started getting more frequent. So I'd have 1 or 2 a day to then having 4 or 5 a day. And I remember sitting at home one night and I had about 6 on the bounce. I said, my body's definitely trying to tell me something here. So I went to the doctors and, God love the GP system, but they're not qualified to pick up on. I was diagnosed with anxiety and stress. Well, life was really good. Business was flying. I was like, this can't be right. So I paid for a specialist, best £275 I've ever spent, down at the National. I was one of the consultants of the National Neurological Centre in London. And he put me in for an EEG and also an MRI. And I got a call the following Monday saying that we found something, a mass on your brain. Can you come in to the National Hospital on Friday with an overnight bag? And I was like, oh, okay. So I remember we were scooting off down there, not a care in the world, still smoking away, 20 a day. I got there and I remember sitting in a room. And this lady, bless her, lovely nurse, she just said, look, I need to do some checks with you. So I took my top off. She goes, have you got any lumps? And I do have lumps. I've got fatty lumps. They're called lymphonites, but that's nothing to do with cancer. Right. But then she started checking my lymph nodes, and I thought, oh, bloody hell, something is not going right here. She goes, you're going to wait for someone. I said, well, look, you've already checked my lymph nodes. So let's just take me and just tell me why I'm here. And she sat me down. And it's like the best way to describe it. They all got told I had this disease is, if you watch Gogglebox and stuff like that, time slows down and you get really, I've got. And I remember just saying that, she said, from your scan, we can see that you've got a mass on your brain. And it's highlighted, it's going to be a cancerous, high-grade cancerous glioblastoma. And that's when time just stands still. She's like, I was always going to be the person who didn't get cancer, but I was like, are you sure? She goes, 100%. You know, we've had all the specialists in the country look at this, and they're 100% sure it's a glioblastoma. So what's going to happen is this. You're coming back in 2 days' time for your brain surgery, and then we'll take it from there. But yeah, I remember being on my own. That's no disrespect to my wife. She was trying to get to me, but she just couldn't because of work situation. I remember going to sit out on Queen Square, the National. My best mate came skipping across the green with a packet of cigarettes for me. And I just sat there and just in shock, really. I was always a person, like I said, who didn't get cancer. And then you go straight to Google, don't you? And anybody that comes to me and says, I've got some form of cancer, just say, stay off Google. No good comes of Google. But I was there on the phone Googling, and I was like, oh, bloody hell. And the rest they say is history. I tell people that's a motorcycle accident with no helmet. That's quite good, isn't it? I got a bit of a wonky head from my surgery, but apart from that, that's the day I got told I had brain cancer. Sat in a room on my own with a lovely nurse, sat in disbelief. It's the best way, is just shock. You just sit in shock for about 10, 15 minutes. I didn't start crying, I didn't do anything like that. I didn't go, oh, why me, why me? It was just, all right, let's see what's the next stage. That's what I wanted to know, basically. The next stage was brain surgery, followed by, I think it was 60 fractions of chemo alongside radiotherapy.
Oh.
That was it. That was the day. I can't remember the day exactly. But yeah, that was 9 years ago now.
It was April, wasn't it?
It was April, yeah. 16th of April, I think it was. I had my surgery, but it was earlier in April when I got the diagnosis of what they thought it might be. Then they biopsied it, as they usually do, and then they tell you the poo sandwich at the end.
That's one way to describe it, for sure. How do you guys think, if at all, has your friendship changed since this diagnosis?
Things definitely change, and you adapt. I saw it with my sister too. I think when someone gets, a diagnosis like this, everything shifts for them, but it also shifts for everyone who loves them as well.
Yeah.
And I think there's a group of us, actually. There's a group of 5 of us that have been best friends for 30 years. I think as a friendship group, you either lean into it or you can shy away from it, I think. And some people do find it really uncomfortable and they will put distance. We decided to go the other way and we just said we're going to lean, completely into this. And we, you've seen Dan change physically. You've seen some of it that, his personality is still there. It'll always be there, but you do see some changes in personality as well. And there are things that he can't do anymore. So we can't do anymore as well. But we still, we still laugh, we still joke, we're still taking the mickey out of each other. So that is always there. I think what's changed for me is the depth now. I think we talk about things we probably never would have talked about before. Although we were best friends and all the families are friends, it was probably quite high level, superficial. It was, laughing and joking in a pub. I think over the last few years, we talked a lot more about, family, emotions, money worries. What does the future look like for Lammy's kids and his wife? So I'd say in many ways, we're probably closer now.
We're closer now than I think we've ever been, even back in 20 years ago when I was throwing my bag across the room and rapping when I was walking into the common room. Yeah, I remember that first time I played football. Are you any good? I was, I'm all right. And then he comes and he's like, bloody Ronaldo over here. I think it's stronger, not just because of my situation, but I knew Katie's sister. I think we come closer because of cancer as well. We can both relate to the disease. Dave more on the affective side of being affected by the people around who have it, whereas I've got the disease. So I'm more compos mentis when it comes to being able to speak to him. I was trying to provide some support for his sister, and she's provided some support for me until she passed, bless her. But, it's just, if I can help people like that, and he's my mate, so there's nothing I want to do for him. But yeah, and then we came up with Headstrong, which is a godsend for me because I can't work anymore.
So you both said there about how since Dan's been diagnosed, you've both had conversations more openly, but in terms of glioblastoma and the conversations around glioblastoma, again, probably a question to both of you. What questions do you think people avoid having about glioblastoma that, we should be having more openly? We know that glioblastoma comes with a prognosis of 12 to 18 months, and Dan, you sat here and you've been going strong for 9 years. What conversations do you think we need to be having more openly around glioblastoma?
I think I had a bit of a wake-up call, Mel. The last bank holiday of August last year, I had a minor reoccurrence. Because for not 8 years, I've had nothing, okay? I've not had a seizure. I've just been, people go, don't even look like you've got cancer, which is the biggest compliment I can get. The last August bank holiday of last year, I had a massive blackout seizure in the bathroom at home, and I was in hospital for a week. That was off the back of a scan where they thought something looked a bit unusual. Right, so I was given 8 weeks to them. My consultant sent me out of the room. When I went to see him, he goes, told my wife I've got 8 weeks left to live. My friends, Dave and all the boys, rallied around as they usually do to give any support they could to my wife, the kids and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just a wake-up call, really. I have a disease. People don't ever ask me the question, will you be cured of it? Because I won't, Sadly, this disease is most likely going to kill me at some point. If it's not now, but at some point in the future. It's not a pill you can't just swallow that pill. But we have a lady who was my old clinical trials nurse. I remember having a conversation with her once on the chemo ward saying, look, I know this is aggressive, I know this is bad. She goes, it really is. I said, but I don't want it to beat me as a person. She goes, it will. I said, oh, great. But she was like, it will, and you can't swallow that pill, you just got to crack on. I don't want to pussyfoot around it. It's a very, very aggressive cancer, probably one of the worst out there. My biggest issue is trying to explain it to my son and my daughter because they're only young. So they just know Dad's got a poorly head and that's why he goes down to London. But my son's like, well, your head get better. And I just don't know what to say to him, because it probably won't,
Yeah, I agree with everything that Dan's saying. But, I didn't know anything about glioblastoma before Dan told us. Like he said, that first kind of Google search hit so hard. The severity, the prognosis, the stats. And Dan's one of the lucky ones. Obviously, he's still going strong. But the thing I think isn't probably fully appreciated is how hard it is after the surgery. And if you look at how Dan's life has changed, and he's accepted all of that, obviously because he's still here. So you take all of that on, but your eyesight's affected, his hearing's affected, his memory's affected. He can't work anymore. He can't exercise like he used to. He can't go out drinking like he used to. So his whole kind of livelihood has changed overnight. His relationship with his wife, has had to adapt. He's constantly traveling to London for appointments. So he's grateful to be alive, of course. But if I try and put myself in his shoes and anyone's shoes who's got this disease, it must be really lonely and scary at times as well, because yes, the surgery was a success, but everything has changed for him, and you've got to completely adapt. So I think again, he's leaned into it. I've used that phrase a couple of times, but he has completely just said, "Yeah, this is where I'm at. I'm going to make the most of this. I'm going to live life to the full." I think people probably don't appreciate how difficult life is afterwards as well.
Yeah. I can hear okay, by the way, Dave.
What?
My hearing's fine. Memory's not. It was rubbish before, but crikey, my poor wife. Actually, the same thing at least 3 times a day.
So thank you for both expanding on that, because we know brain tumours are such a niche area, and until you're affected by it, people don't really understand it. I think following on from that, you're both here as the co-founders of Headstrong. Like, when did the conversation first happen about creating Headstrong Against Cancer, and what was kind of like the idea behind that, I guess, to get those conversations going?
I started fundraising for cancer charities once my sister Kate and Lammy were diagnosed. It gave me, I think, from my perspective as a brother and a best friend, I felt quite useless. So it gave me some control, give me something to focus on and try and help people. So I was doing some fundraising for cancer research, for Maggie's, and I met so many wonderful people through fundraising. And there was one particular gent I met, a guy called Kevin Griffiths, and he's set up similar to Headstrong, a fundraising brand, an organization called Cancer My Arse. He's a stage 4 cancer patient, and he's set up Cancer My Arse, and it's a very provocative, bold, smacks you in the face fundraising brand. He talked very openly about his challenges, his cancer journey, and he's raised hundreds of thousands of pounds for charity. He gave up his time and had a conversation with me, and I just came away from that conversation, completely inspired by this guy. And since then, Lammy's met him as well, and that kind of planted the seed in my head that I wanted to do something as well. And then I think when Dan had the scare last summer, when we thought, he might only be here 6-8 weeks now. And when we found out then he was stable, that was the trigger for me to speak to Dan. Dan couldn't work anymore, and I just felt it was a perfect opportunity to get this set up, create a legacy, part of Dan's legacy, provide him something to focus on now as well. And also, and without a shadow of a doubt, he's the most generous individual I have ever met in my life. And when he was working and running businesses, he was giving money to people. He's so kind and generous with his time, and I know how much he wants to help people and give. So that was the moment we had the first discussion. It was last summer. We said, "Shall we do this?" And we've taken it from there.
I was just shocked that less than 1% of cancer research's money comes down to brain cancer. And that's the biggest killer of children, isn't it? And adults under the age of 40. I think in terms of if I can raise awareness through my disease and the brand itself, and also get out there that some of the symptoms you might need to look out for. I wouldn't have got tested unless my phantom taste and smell kept coming and coming and coming to the point whereby I was like, this isn't right. If we can make a difference by raising funds that go straight to brain cancer research, whether that's independent trials, mainly independent trials, if I'm brutally honest with you, because the trial I'm on is a public funded one by Bristol Myers Squibb, so they just pay for the lot for University College to host a trial there, whereas other research centres, the independent ones, they need funding. So if we can help fund some of those, I think that would be part of our legacy moving forward. And if we can help people, just if we can set up a one-stop drop in, right, this is what you need to know. These are the benefits you can get. These are the outlets you can talk to, rather than having to go off and find everything can be hard work, That's kind of it for me. But yeah, we need to raise money, raise awareness, and get the money to the right people so we can find new cures for the disease itself or prevention for the disease itself. I'm still a firm believer that AI and modern medicine will work together and will cure it or find something that can just manage it like they have done with AIDS in the past. That's what I mean. There's so many different types of it as well, isn't there?
Over 120 different types.
Crikey. Again, yeah.
On that point then, could you tell us more about what your experience has been of clinical trials and emerging treatments, kind of on both sides of that? So you've just mentioned that you've been on a trial or are on a trial. Sorry, I didn't
I'm
quite
still on it, yeah.
understand. Would you like how we've had a few conversations, and I know in this seasons we've spoken about clinical trials a lot, and some people are having treatment in the UK, some people are not, and Germany is one that comes up massively.
It does,
Could you
doesn't
tell
it?
us your experience?
I was as lucky as you can be. Okay, I got diagnosed with glioblastoma with the right type of mutations just by chance at the University College London, who were running a trial for immunotherapy, about to set up a trial for immunotherapy for a drug called nivolumab. I qualified for it, but for the first, so I did that alongside the radio and standard treatment for about 6-7 weeks, and then just purely onto the immunotherapy after that. It didn't pass its first marker, but that was just purely for brain cancer and the certain mutations that I had and others had at the time. It didn't pass its end goal. But they've now done a pan-cancer one, so I'm on that trial now. It's the same trial, same drug, nivolumab. I'm unblinded now because I didn't know if I was getting the placebo or the actual drug until the first trial stopped, if that makes sense. But it turns out I was on the drug. It's done all right for me, hasn't it? Let's not beat around the bush. It's definitely kept me here longer than most people have been here. And I'm still getting the drug now. I was there yesterday. Shot the good stuff, as they say, on the chemo ward. I'm quite lucky, you know. We're getting 9 years now. Most of them know me. I can't remember what fraction I'm on now. I think it's definitely over 90, if not into the hundreds. But it was quite. I'm in an iron at first because I'm not a massive fan of change. You transition from standard treatment that's clearly not worked to try something new that's done all right with other cancers. And I remember sat down with my brother talking it through, and he said, "You're doing this." And if it hadn't been for him, I probably wouldn't have done it. But I did it, so I own my life right now. And yeah, I just crack on. It's been very seamless for me, okay? I got offered a trial at the right time, okay? It wasn't no hoops to jump through or anything like that, but it just doesn't seem to be as many trials at the moment. That's why people are going to Germany.
Oh, can I add in a question?
Of course.
I'm going a bit off. So in this season, in episode 1, we had Dr. Scott Arthur, who fronted the Rare Cancers Bill, which is now the Rare Cancers Act. And one of our questions to him was going, right, okay, this is cool, but when are we actually going to start seeing those impacts on the ground? And he spoke about some of those first actions being how you're kind of like automatically put on a database unless you opt out, so that you get these clinical trials and it'll pop through on your NHS app. Does that sound like a good positive step? Do you think there's anything that they may be missing out there? What do you think about that?
Well, unless you're a specialist, you know, unless you're a consultant who knows the ins and outs of whatever cancer that you might have, if something pops up and says you might be eligible for this, you know, it's like saying, okay, you could potentially win the lottery if you sign up to this, you know. It's not a given that something's going to work. I'd rather it be the other way. There'd be a central database for all the trials that are out there at the moment. Consultants and patients can access. I know what I was diagnosed with, as do most cancer patients, because you usually get numerous letters with the different stages of what you got and when you got it. If you can find a central database to just search them yourself and then go to your consultant and say, would I qualify for this? Because most of them, even if you see something that might be right, you still got to get sign off and it's still got to go through a consultant anyway. They should know. Should know what's out there. For me, making more accessible to consultants to get hold of, or oncologists to get hold of data around trials that are new or pending. But I'm under Dr. Mulholland, so I got quite lucky. But I know he's doing lots of kind of, not untraditional, but he's doing lots of, what's the word I'm looking for? More niche him and a few other oncologists are setting up micro trials to experiment on different things. He's kind of quite free thinking around what could and couldn't work. And personally, I think it should be driven. The oncologist should know what their patients could and couldn't be eligible for, and what's coming up and what's not coming up. I get immunotherapy drug once a month. It doesn't cost me a penny on the NHS because I'm on a trial through University College. What I'm trying to say is, look, I'm lucky because I'm on a trial that seems to be on a drug that seems to be working. Okay, there are other people that might be on drugs, on trials that aren't funded, and they have to go to Germany that we don't know. But mine's pan cancer now, so it's breast, liver, prostate, as well as my head.
So, in terms of Headstrong, and you mentioned it before about it's something that you wanted to create as like a legacy for Dan and things like that, but community is something that we talk a lot about on the GlioBabes, and we've seen how powerful it can be firsthand. You know, we both have brain tumours ourselves, and this is exactly why we set up the podcast to connect other people. But what role has community played in your journey, and what does Headstrong Against Cancer community mean to you today? And you know, you can both answer this. It's an open question, but the sense of community, how has that kind of helped you both with Headstrong?
Personally, it's everything. During adversity, you realise how bloody brilliant people are. You know, there's a lot of negativity out there, but there's also a hell of a lot of positivity. And community is everything. We've met so many wonderful people, and people that will back you. You know, it's family, it's friends, it's colleagues, it's customers, it's suppliers, old uni mates. We've met scientists, fundraisers, other patients, and it's so powerful. You know, we've done it recently with Last Mile together. And it was all around, you know, just getting people active, getting people outside, walking a mile, running a mile, running a half marathon. And we had people all over the world involved, you know, buying merchandise, fundraising, sharing pictures. And it just raises the spirit and raises the awareness. So I would say it's absolutely everything to what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah. I agree with everything he just said. I think in terms of community, we're still growing our community. It's not massive at the moment. We still need to get more into the community. I'm not a social media guru by any chance, by any stretch, sorry, but I try my best. It's about what engagement channels work best. I'm still trying to figure that out. I don't think LinkedIn is our best way, if I'm brutally honest with you. I think it's more, what else can we do outside of the main channels that are maybe different to what others are doing? I mean, we need more people in our community, but community's been brilliant, especially when we held it. It's a lady in our village. Most of the village was out doing it. And it raises awareness in the village as well. I'm about to sponsor my son's football team. If we can get some more sponsorship deals with the kids' football team, because it is the biggest killer of children, isn't it? So,
But watching, like, for instance, you two and what you're doing, it's just unbelievable. It's it's so inspiring and great. You know, Gracie and Nicola Nuttall. You know, people just driving us forward, raising awareness. You know, it is so underfunded. It is a travesty. And we have to work together to raise more awareness, help patients, raise funding. You can't do that alone, can you? It needs everyone pulling together.
Most certainly. Collaboration, cooperation is something we've had many discussions on this podcast between professionals and with community members on, and totally agree. You know, it's so important, and I really hope that we start seeing more of it, that we start bringing people together. But we see that happening. I know that when this has gone out, the brain cancer justice debate would have already happened in Westminster. So hopefully something good has come from that, and we're not just seeing a repeat from the debate 10 years ago. But
let's get down there with a big banner, 4 of us.
Yeah, it's all. Hopefully, we're going to see more of this collaboration, and And kind of, I think it's really, really special that community members are leading the way in that. It'd be really nice to see like the third sector and people continue to do that as well. And I also not going to skip over that you did break my heart a little bit then when you said about LinkedIn. I really do like LinkedIn.
I don't dislike LinkedIn. I've never used it properly for this type of thing, if that makes sense.
It's tricky. We've just started a GlioBabes one, and
that's great. I've been following you. I think
tricky.
Honestly, I didn't realise your situation, so I started following you on LinkedIn, and it's like humbling. You know, you humble me.
In a take that bit out, then, Lammy. Your comment about LinkedIn.
You can find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. www.headstrongagainstcancer.co.uk. I would give out my mobile number, but I'm not going to do that.
Okay. Thank you for sharing more of the background on it, dear. And we've learned so much from you today, and it's great to see Headstrong online and everything you're doing. But I just think it's so special when we're actually able to have these conversations, and maybe someone has heard this and has gone, I know who I'm going to get in contact with now, and that's why we're doing it. It's a platform that hopefully we can connect people more is always the goal. But when you think about Headstrong Against Cancer in 10 years' time, what do you think success would look like for you?
I think we're trying to keep it simple. So helping patients and families, raising awareness, raising funds for research, bringing people together. I'd personally love to see Dan still here and leading this initiative with his kids and family involved as well.
Just me and you, Dave. Let's not get carried away, okay?
But we're not putting a monetary target on this. It's around helping as many people as we can. That's the key. And I know, and it's such a difficult topic, but doing it with some humor and a smile, bringing especially Lammy's personality to the forefront, and supporting people.
Yeah, if I can get people talking about it, people buying into it, people understanding it. If we can, look, it may sound stupid, but if we can get someone to the point where they're in remission by helping them either get access to treatment or access to a trial, I'll be happy. That's kind of my goal. It's not a monetary value. It's if we can get someone who's doing stuff for them specifically through to remission, then we've done all right. That's kind of my vision.
Thank you both so much for coming on to the podcast today. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you both.
Thanks, ladies. Thanks very much.
Legends.
Thank you so much, Dave and Dan, for coming on to the GlioBabes podcast today, telling us more about Headstrong Against Cancer. And thank you, Dan, for telling us about your story and how you've been affected and still are affected by glioblastoma.
We are now on season 8 of the podcast, which means that there are so many episodes for you to listen to if you would like to. We are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. All of our guest episodes, just like this one, will be available on YouTube. So you can see our guests' wonderful faces, the diagrams, lots of stuff coming up, which I won't say any more on because they are definitely spoilers. Of course, we know that even when we are having a laugh, this is backed by a very serious and awful reality for a lot of people. So please do reach out for support. In the show notes, you will find the helplines that are available, as well as emergency services should you feel that you need them. Also, you can reach out to us at any time. The GlioBabes, you can find us on Instagram at the GlioBabes, TikTok at the.GlioBabes, and Dan may not approve, but we are now on LinkedIn, the GlioBabes podcast. So please go support us. And of course, all the links to Headstrong and where you can find Dan and Dave are also available in the show notes. So please go and check them out, support, and also reach out to them should you feel that they could be able to support you.
You might want to take that out, okay? Yeah, if you could have that bit out, that'd be great.